See what I mean, guys? At least we're testing out all these different backgrounds and stuff. Hopefully eventually get my own office and that. It's not absolutely rattling off my back, but look at that, better background at least. Boom. Do your angels in there. Brilliant. Right, anyway, here we go. Podcast number 2. Or is it a podcast? Here we go. Using my brother's mad flashlight thing. Keeps showing shadows though, and I don't have a stand for it, so we'll have to go for the winging one again so it doesn't look like a torch. Here we go. Right, that'll do. Wee white background sorted. So I want to go through basically my training regime just now. So alongside football, which I probably run about 28k during football with my 2 training sessions, about averaging 7k. My game at the weekend, which is about 14k, 2k warm up, and I normally run about 12 kilometres. So that means that in a month's time I've got High Rocks in Glasgow, and for that I can probably only run another 10-15k max, so normally it's about another 10k. One might be a recovery run, which is probably a Sunday or a Monday, and then one other could be more intense. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, which would be a 5k, maybe repeated kilometres or even shorter distance, and that would top up basically. Just with football I need to watch myself, so basically the way that I structure my week is I've got strength and injury prevention on a Monday alongside sometimes a run, which would be a recovery run if I've not done it on the Sunday. Then into Tuesday it's more intense, so you're probably doing more kind of intense circuit training, so along the hybrid style, as they call it, hybrid style training, where you might have cardio and strength kind of mixed. Can add a bit of running in there too. So that'd be the Tuesday, and I'd train Tuesday night. Wednesday should be more of a recovery, but I tend to do a wee bit, maybe more skill related stuff in there. Then Thursday I've got training at night, and the sessions kind of mixed, so a bit of strength and cardio again. And then Friday's a lighter session, so that would be skill based, a bit more mobility. I'd do mobility on the start of the week and the end of the week before my game too. Then Saturday I'd have my game, so that's how I'm doing it. Ideally, if you're training for something like a half marathon, High Rocks, that kind of thing, you'd want to focus entirely on the training for that, but because I've got football, you can't really, so you just need to be written as efficient as possible. You can't be as specific with your running, but football helps with some of the running. It's just not quite specific. Yeah, that's pretty much my training schedule. And then kind of the week before your event, you'd always taper it back kind of thing, and just so you've got enough recovery in to give it your best shot when you're doing it. But I'm sure there's a few folk out there that I know that are doing the same. They've got football and they're still doing a High Rocks or still doing an event. They'll know all about that kind of the troubles and stuff with that. Yeah, so that's my training schedule. So this takes me to about 35-40 kilometres a week of running, and that's obviously mixed. You've got football, you've got slow running, and you've maybe got a bit of intervals in there. What is planned as well, so I've obviously got High Rocks in a month in Glasgow, so looking forward to that experience. I'm doing singles, so that's going to be a lot harder than the double simulation that I've done previously in the year with my mates. So hopefully I can get a bit of footage for that, or photos and stuff, and share my experience after it and let you know how I got on, and hopefully I can recover alright from it with football in between kind of thing. So we've got that. I've booked to go back to Australia, which is exciting, and I'll see friends and family on that trip, and on the way back in Abu Dhabi I've got family, so I'm going to visit them there, flying to Dubai. So that's exciting. I'm going to catch up with a few folk in the kind of fitness industry as well, more performance based people, some that have their own gym and things like that. Hopefully get some video footage this time, because last time when I was in Australia and lived there for just under about 2 years, lost my GoPro about a week in, I'm sure it was pretty soon into it, and didn't get to really video as much as I'd like. So hopefully in this 4 or 5 week trip I'll get to share my experiences and become a wee vlogger or something. But eventually I'll need some tips and tricks on how to get better at it and not have a stupid white screen that I'm sitting on a sofa with. Do you know what I mean? And the last big thing I want to talk about is another big one. What's the difference between kind of more athlete performance training and then bodybuilders? A lot of athletes actually try and train like a bodybuilder, and that's wrong. Like, bodybuilders don't really train in lots of planes of motion, which you need as an athlete. For example, rotational movements, you don't see a lot. Wow, my hair. Stop. So athletes train predominantly in different planes of motion. Bodybuilders don't train in as many ranges of motion. Bodybuilders are there to gain mass. It's about muscle size, whereas as an athlete, predominantly you don't want big muscle. You want efficient muscle, lean muscle mass, but not big muscle. So that's a big one. Other thing is, bodybuilders will probably, they train in different rep ranges and stuff, but 8 to 12, kind of towards your 15s at times as well. Heavy lifting too. Athletes, especially in season, they probably want to try and lift fairly heavy and lower reps. And obviously athletes have a pre-season, in-season, off-season, that kind of thing. Bodybuilders, it's more to do with cutting, bulking, maintaining, which athletes can still do if they need to for performance, but that's a few differences, and make sure that you're basically training like an athlete and not a bodybuilder. I've wrote a wee list of differences between athletes and bodybuilding training. So athletes are there to improve their performance and strength, speed, endurance, agility, etc. Whereas bodybuilders, it's more an increase in muscle size, so hypertrophy, and aesthetics, so the way they look. Athletes actually shouldn't be focusing too much on the way they look, unless they look really bad. Next is their training focus. So you're obviously sport specific movements if you're an athlete, functional strength, power, mobility, everything's functional. You're wanting to be able to move as efficiently and as quick as possible, be as powerful as possible. Bodybuilders, it's more muscle isolation, volume based and hypertrophy, like we said before. Now, strength work, it would be heavy compound lifts for athletes, which is your squat and deadlift, some Olympic lifts if it's not too technical. I'm blocking the camera light, brilliant. And force production, obviously, through that. Moderate to heavy weights for bodybuilders, higher volume, focus on the muscle breakdown and recovery. Rep ranges can vary for both, but tends to be lower for performance athletes, so 1 to 6, 6 to 10, whereas bodybuilders, a lot of their stuff's 8 to 12, 12 to 20, depending on hypertrophy and endurance, what their aim is. Rest periods tends to be shorter for athletes. That depends on energy systems targeted and all that, but tends to be shorter, whereas it's moderate to long, 45 seconds to 3 minutes for bodybuilders. Conditioning cardio, most bodybuilders use quite low impact cardio, which I've found. So they use that strategically, steady state cardio or a bit of hit for fat loss maybe, but a lot of them use incline treadmill and the stepper pretty much. That's their two essentials. Whereas intervals, sprints, agility drills, sport specific endurance are all there for the athlete. Explosiveness, so there's a high focus in this for athletes, whereas it's not a primary focus for bodybuilders. You've got plyometrics and stuff like that, jumping, sprinting, that are big for athletes. Now, mobility and stability, so this is crucial for injury prevention and the movement efficiency of different athletes, and it can be included in bodybuilders, but it's not prioritised highly, I would say. Now, periodisation, so this is cyclical for performance-based athletes. As I said, you've got your off-season, pre-season, in-season. You've got different recovery phases as well, whereas it's more linear for bodybuilders who have their bulks, their cuts, things like that, maintenance through the year. So those kind of 3 phases for them. Nutrition, so performance-based, you've got fueling for recovery, maintaining lean mass. So it tends to be just lean mass is what you're wanting if you're an athlete. Body composition based targets are for bodybuilders mainly, so that is caloric deficit a surplus and you're wanting to gain muscle or have fat loss occur. So more aesthetics. Supplementation, so performance aids, you're going to have creatine, caffeine, sometimes beta-alanine for performance. But bodybuilders, it's more like muscle growth aids, I'd say. So protein, your branched chain amino acids, creatine, they'll have more pre-workouts. I prefer coffee myself, but yeah, pre-workouts used predominantly in bodybuilding. So a wee summary of that. Hopefully this isn't a shocking video footage here, but athletes train for performance, so that's speed, power, endurance, and the priorities functional training, so efficiency and sport-specific skills, so it's more skill-based. Bodybuilders, they train primarily for muscle size and symmetry, so they want both sides to be pretty similar, focusing on high volume resistance training and controlled nutrition. So that's a wee kind of, what do you call it? That's a roundup of the comparisons between athlete performance training and bodybuilding training. And bodybuilders do consider that a sport. So depending who you talk to, they'd say both performance maybe, but that's the way that I put it, and that's the key differences that I'm seeing and that I think there are in both kind of areas, both fields of training. But make sure that if you're a bodybuilder, you're probably wanting to add a bit of mobility. That's what I see, that they need a bit of mobility, a lot of these bodybuilders. And if you are a performance trainer and as an athlete, don't train like a bodybuilder. That's the big takeaway. Train for functional fitness. Goodbye.
Goodbye.